Welcome to a coffee chat in a van. This is a series of videos that I do that's just us getting together and having a little chat about some things that I have on my mind or current events, usually coffee related. But today we're going to veer off the topic of coffee, but this is a coffee chat, so I do have a cup of coffee. This is a pretty good cup. I'm actually trying some new beans, and these are from the store called Grocery Outlet, and this is their store brand coffee beans, and just trying them out for the first time, and I have to say they're pretty decent. They're not the greatest quality coffee beans, and the roast is not the greatest quality, but they are pretty tasty, so that's what I am enjoying here on tonight's coffee chat. But like I said, this chat is not about coffee necessarily. This is about something else that I have had some comments and questions on. And that is, should I give up van life? Now, it seems I get these comments and questions and emails quite often after I put up certain types of videos, and those videos would be any video that shows real van life or real life in general. Anything that can be slightly construed as negative that I put on my vlogs or other videos seems to elicit quite a heavy response from quite a number of viewers. And so, like I said, I get lots of comments left on videos. I also get a lot of emails. Now, I get two very different types of comments, but in my mind, they are very much the same. The first sort of questions are just that people are telling me that it just seems like van life is too difficult, and they think that I would be better off if I got an apartment or bought a house or something like that, something a little more traditional in their mind. The other type of comment is something to the effect of that I need to take a break from van life. So say if there's a big storm that is on the horizon or that I dealt with, whether that be wind or rain or snow or hot weather, any of these things, somebody will tell me that maybe I should get a hotel for a time, or maybe I should try to stay with friends or family and not stay in the van. And like I said, I think these two comments are very similar. And in my mind, they're the same type of comment, because what they're saying is, even though they're very different comments really, what they're saying is that in their viewpoint, I am uncomfortable in some way in my life. And so they have decided that the best way around that would be for me to either take a break or to give up van life altogether. But the whole idea is that I am uncomfortable or I am suffering in some way. Now, I need to just say that if you are one of the many, many people who have dropped a comment or typed out an email to me and suggested that I give up van life for a time or forever, I don't mean to be picking on you. I just want to bring up the fact that maybe, just maybe, we're seeing things in a slightly different view. Now, like I alluded to before, I get these suggestions whenever I film something and put up something on a video that shows a slight bit of hardship. So if I say it was really hot and I got a little dehydrated or I got a little overheated, I get a bunch of these comments. If I say I got stuck in the snow somewhere and I didn't want to drive because I didn't want to put my house, my van, at risk of driving through some bad weather, then I get these comments that maybe I need to pack it in and give up van life. But this kind of is a difficulty for me because I want to portray real life. I don't want to glorify van life. That's not at all what I'm doing. I want to show real life. And van life is real life. Now, I've been living out of a van for 5.5 years now. And I've lived in a couple of different types of climates. I found one type of climate is a little easier to deal with than another. I've also found some areas are a little easier to live out of than another area. But all of these things are based on my personal preference. And this is, I think, the key of getting to the point of understanding our differences of opinion. But my opinion is that this is the easiest type of life that I have ever had. Now, I am middle-aged. You might say well past middle-aged. No, I've lived in several different ways. I've actually rented a trailer for a little while. I've rented an apartment. I've had roommates in that apartment situation. I've had an apartment by myself. I've also owned a home, although that's a funny way of saying that because most of us never really own a home. We make mortgage payments to a bank, and then say that we own a home. But I owned a home for more than 10 years. I also rented a room from friends. And so that kind of covers a lot of the ways that people live, a lot of the traditional ways, I should say, that people live. And all of that prior experience went into this little experiment of living out of a van. There were things that I liked about having my own home. There were things that I liked about renting from friends. And there were things that I liked about having an apartment. But all of those things had drawbacks. Owning my own home was supposedly the great thing to do financially. That didn't work out quite so well for me. I lost a lot of money on that house, and I put a lot of money into that house. But again, that was my circumstance. I bought a house that was in pretty bad shape and needed a lot of work just to be livable, and that really put me in a bad financial situation. And the whole time, I listened to friends and family that told me that this was the proper thing to do, that eventually I would get through that remodeling and eventually I would have a big payday if I ever wanted to sell that house. But like I said, that didn't quite work out. And that did change a lot of how I feel about homeownership from then on. There were things also about renting an apartment and renting from friends. The apartment life was pretty good, but there was a lot of it that I didn't like. Also, renting from friends, that changed the way I thought about things too. That was probably the easiest and best decision I made after I stopped trying to just cover all the bills of owning an apartment or owning my own home. When I moved in with friends and rented a room from them, it was a very big burden reliever for me. I didn't have to make nearly as much money to get by. And so that aspect was great. But the other aspect of having a roommate constantly around was not so good either. And that was, again, something that changed my viewpoint of renting from friends. And so all of these things kind of really stuck with me. And when I started to think about the future, and I started to think about an idea of living a little bit differently, living out of a van, all of these things played back in my head. These are things that I thought about. I really decided that I don't want another roommate. I just thought that with van life, I could just get up and pick another neighborhood if I'm in a van. So that was something that made van life look very enticing to me. I didn't have to worry about having a roommate. I didn't have to worry about bad neighbors. And for the most part, that's true. Now, I can't always pick where I'm going to park at night, and sometimes I have bad neighbors, but usually if things are real bad, I'll pick up and drive away. And these are all kind of the worst aspects of things about renting and owning my own home that I've been talking about. But the other thing is just about weather. I've lived in Southern California in a really hot environment, and I've lived in the Pacific Northwest where we had more seasons and had some cold weather, had less heat, but had some cold weather to deal with. And, I've found that weather is probably the worst thing to deal with when you live in a van, unless you have a generator and you can have an air conditioning unit that you can run whenever you want and have a heat source so you can run a heater whenever you want. There are some downsides to dealing with the weather, but I've had things that made me think about how I've had to deal with weather in the past. And back when I owned my own home, I was in the Southern California deserts, and I had plenty of 100+ degree days to deal with. And believe it or not, I had no air conditioning in that house for several years. I had a swamp cooler. Some people call them an evap cooler, but I call them a swamp cooler because that's exactly what they do. They add humidity into the air, and swamp coolers are not the healthiest of options. In my opinion, living in a van where you can pick your neighborhood again, pick where you want to live, pick the type of weather you want to put up with, is a much better solution than being stuck in a house. So these are all things that affect the way that I think about van life. So thinking about all of that and comparing it to the last 5.5 years, I can say without a doubt that van life has been more comfortable, it's been easier, and it's been more enjoyable than any of the other ways that I've lived in the past. Now, maybe your experience would be different, and maybe you've had different experiences, and maybe these people that are telling me to give up van life because it looks too difficult, maybe they lived in a van, and maybe things didn't go quite so well for them. And for me, I have only had a positive experience with van life. It's been a little bit less expensive, so I haven't had to work the 70 hours a week that I did back when I was renting and owning my own home. That's given me a chance to spend a little more money on food, and food is the thing that I enjoy more than anything else. We're here having a coffee chat, and I'm enjoying a very nice cup of coffee. This is something that I couldn't afford to do very much when I was strapped in debt. There were several years that I spent 60% of my income on rent. And you think about that, spending 60% of my income just to have a roof over my head. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially when my experience with spending all that money has not been good. So if you're one of the people that continue to send me an email and tell me that things are too difficult for me and that I need to give up van life, I just really need to urge you that our experiences are vastly different. And if I ever got to the point where things got difficult in the van, I would look at getting out and living a more quote unquote traditional lifestyle. But for now, I don't want to make any changes. Life has been too good over the last 5.5 years. I've had to work less. I've been healthier. I've been outside more. I've had a little bit of extra money to have some hobbies and to be able to travel some. these are all incredible positive things that have come from van life. And it is really difficult for me to make a list of negative aspects of van life. Sure, I can really nitpick and find little things that are irritating about van life, but overall, it has been such a great 5.5 years that I don't want to go back to living in a house, and I don't want to take a break from van life. I don't need it. I have everything I need here. I have a fan that keeps me cool. I have a heater that keeps me warm. I have running water and a stove and a kitchen and a very comfortable bed. So no, I don't think I need to give up van life, at least not right now. And, we don't know what the future holds. We need to be prepared to make changes. I mean, life is about change. So maybe I won't always feel this way. But for right now, this is the way I feel. And I am very happy and very content and very comfortable living in a van. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it.